Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Decisions Lunch and Learn. I'm going to be your host for today, Gregory Goldson of the Decisions Training Team on this Monday, June the 9th. So, let's go over our stuff on the right side here. Check out our Decision Support YouTube channel. We got a variety of content there. We have videos going over authentication, over the the Kafka module. We have different step that we have different videos that are covering how to use different steps or different categories of steps. We have file storage stuff. We have a lot of different videos that just talk about how to use the product in an efficient way, how to do things in the product that you may not know how to, or things you didn't even know were possible. So we've got a lot of stuff there. Highly recommend taking a look at that. Also, check out the Solutions Marketplace. I don't believe there are really many videos there, but what they do have are some pre-built projects called accelerators. And these accelerators you can bring into your environment, test around with them, reverse engineer them if you're looking to build something like it, or take parts directly from the project and implement it into your development. And then lastly, we have the roadmap review back. You can sign up for that at decisions.com/events, where you get to see what's coming down the pipeline in terms of product updates. Speaking of product updates, we're going to have another special guest this week. On Thursday, we're going to have Eric talking about the deployment server, which is going to be a new functionality of the Decisions platform. Highly recommend attending that if you're curious about what that's going to look like in the future. So, we will be discussing that more as we go throughout the week, but the one discussing all of it will be Eric. So hope you all have some time to attend that. That being said, let me move over to my decisions environment now so we can start addressing some questions. So give me just a moment while I do that. This normally doesn't take too long. Give me a moment here. And there's the screen. All right, bring up my participants list, bring up my Q&A. It looks like we already actually have a Q&A option. Hello, where did the Q&A go? There it is. All right, so we got our first question already from Helmet. I'm gonna unmute you and then I will address your question. So it says, I have three sequential dropdowns, A, B, and C. The user selected a value in A, and then a value from that selected object is passed to dropdown B as an input to the flow for dropdown B. Then A and B become parameters for C. I have built a functionality to then clear B and C. When A is changed, however, it does not clear the values returned by the flows supplied by the dropdown until a new value is entered and searched for, potentially allowing unintended values to be selected. Is it possible to clear the dropdown options and the selected value on command? Okay, so I think I understand what you're saying here. Let me create such a form just to make sure that I understand your ask.
Sounds like a school problem, huh?
Just a
Like you're
little
back
bit,
in high
yeah.
school or something.
Yeah, got to draw it out first, right? That's the first
Well,
part,
I was
right?
trying to make it real clear.
No, I think this makes a lot of sense. So, what if I understand what the problem is that you are clearing values from dropdowns B and C, which have been populated from dropdown A, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't change the values returned by the flows until a new value is entered. So you're trying to clear these values right here dynamically. But the problem is they don't clear unless someone changes something from a dependent dropdown. Is that the issue? So, for example, we have A, B, and C right here, right? So drop down A, you select something from it, and then drop down B gets populated based upon that, correct? Oh, let me allow you to talk. I don't know what just happened. Hi, hold on.
Yeah, I think I just got disconnected somehow on
Oh,
accident.
okay. My bad, my bad. All right,
No, you're
cool.
good. Yeah, so for each of the drop downs, I'm using a flow to supply them. And
Okay.
then in those flows, I have a stored procedure. So drop down A, the flow doesn't take any inputs. It just kind of returns a list. And
Okay.
then based on drop down A, I don't take the value that I'm displaying. I take a behind the scenes value that is associated with the value that you choose in A.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm feeding it into drop down B using those little inputs on the configuration thing on the right side. Um, and then I'm using that input from A to then run a stored procedure and supply all the options for drop down B, right?
Makes sense.
And then they choose something from drop down B, and then I take values from A and B, and then I put it into another stored procedure that then, gives me a set of unique values for drop down C. And so
Okay.
obviously I want to clear B and C when I re-choose A, because those values for B and C are not valid anymore, right?
Right.
And so I have a flow that runs whenever you change the selection on drop down A that will clear B and C, and it clears the value that displays on the input, right?
Okay.
But it when you click the little arrow, it'll still show me all of the values that had been fetched from before. And so then theoretically, if I choose A, B, and C, and then I re-choose A, I still have all those values from my first go around on B and C, and I could theoretically click them, and they get chosen. Uh, I don't switch the pool of values until I actually put another value in B and do a change of selection.
Oh, okay. All right. So the flow values are showing in the background, but it's not. Hmm. I see.
So in my flow, like I'm very competent to be able to set the control value on B and C as blank, right? Or just null or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when you click that arrow, you still have all these options when in reality I'd like it to be completely empty, right? Until you choose something in A.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So when you're saying you're getting it from a flow, are you running an active form flow to populate these?
No, so what I'm doing is if you choose list input source,
Yeah.
there's a flow option.
Oh, oh, I see. All right.
And so that maybe I screwed myself over by doing that, but
I'm wondering if that might actually be all right. So you're
the
passing in a
problem.
flow right here. This runs, and then when someone clears it, it passes out the flow data, right? And then you update inputs,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
B to take that. But the problem is that B is still using the old input.
right. And so when I'm trying to clear it, there's no way to clear the values that are, choosable in the dropdown. I can clear the chosen drop the value, but I can't clear the choosable values.
Mm.
So is this
Until you go back to drop down B and it runs again, or
until I choose dropdown A and then I type a value in dropdown B to trigger those are the two like parameters that it
oh,
requires
it's
to
for triggering. Okay.
yeah.
I do think this would be resolve with active form flows admittedly because it would check for the value changed, right? And then B and C wouldn't fetch anything. They would say, oh, drop down A got changed. I should run my fetch again, right?
Yeah.
So that might be the way. But can we make it work with this? Let's think
That would
about
be awesome
this.
to find out.
Yeah, that's the question. Can we make it work with this?
I don't think so, but I'm really optimistic. I'm hopeful.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look. All right, so we've got a flow that's going to come in. That'll output the data that we're going to need here. And then that output data is what's going to determine the flow output data. Type string. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And then that gets populated as drop down B. The question is triggers. How can we make something run?
You just said something. Could I set a flow output data name and then in my clear flow, I clear the output data name? Because right now I'm just clearing the selected value in the control. But
You
if
might be able
if
to
I'm
do that.
understanding correctly, that flow output data name is a data name for the actual values supplied.
I believe so, right? Because that's what you're fetching for drop down B is that output, right?
Right, yeah.
And
Well,
on,
I don't know if this flow output data name is going to be the singular selected, object, or
oh,
it's going to be
okay.
all of the values that this flow provides.
I see, I see. So let's output this as a string.
You're my
Actually, let's
you're
make
my
that a
you're my
list.
rubber ducky. Sometimes you just have to say it out loud to come up with something.
I feel that. I feel that. It's all good.
Hey, yeah,
All
buddy.
right. So this will
Let's
just
see.
we'll just give numbers 1, 2, and 3 here. Save those as constant. Update our inputs. Oh, we're not passing any flow input data right here, but that's fine. The flow output data name will be dropdown A, and then that's fine. We need a title. That's fine. Oh, not for that. For this. Oh, right. Okay. So drop down B, it's pulling its data from that value selected in drop down A. How does it get that value that's selected? Is that the output?
So on go to drop down B,
Yes.
and then list input source will be flow. And then flow input data, you basically are going to change that to string, which is then going to accept the value from A.
Oh, I see. I see. So you're outputting the singular item and that passes out the drop down with some sort of I see. I see.
Yeah, because they want these drop downs to be hyper dynamic, so they have inputs based on the previous drop downs, and it's super complicated.
No, I gotcha. I gotcha. Let's see here. So this is drop down B stuff. Save this, exit. That's fine. I just actually I want to.
Yeah, set up the input data there.
So can we output what was fetched? So that fetches and changes drop down B is whatever selected in A, right? So this
Right,
gets
right.
saved and then let me not configure an output just yet. Oop,
Yeah.
wrong one, wrong one. And now update inputs.
And then I think you have to click that little like pencil by the input to map it to the A.
Yeah, I think so. Hold on. Where do we go?
So drop down B, yep, right there. And I think you choose source type is going to be from foreign control. Yep, drop down A.
Hello. Doesn't match the expected data type. Doesn't match.
Uh,
Oh, I guess input it. Hold on. Let me just pass out a string here. Give me a moment.
yeah, that might be it.
Yeah, I will say that active form flows would have made this easier if I can be
And I
honest.
guess I thought about that, but I was like, well, it looks like this like ability to pass these inputs into these flows that supply these drop downs might satisfy what I need, but that might not be the case. And I have a lot of other active form flows, so I was a little scared if there was an upper limit or something.
There is not, but that's
Okay.
fair. That's fair. But no, there is
Yeah.
not there. So what the issue was is actually I was outputting a list from here, right, to
Oh
populate
yeah.
dropdown B. So dropdown B automatically just pulls from that list instead of a singular item.
Yeah.
Now we could do both. We could have it output both, we can have more than one of these, right? So
Yeah.
go in here, you could output the whole list and the selected item as two different outputs, pass them both into B. I guess it wouldn't really matter too much as far as the output for B, but for C that might help. And then in here we get our input form control, and then if A gets changed,
Then we want to clear B's selected value and all of the, see that's, I don't think this is going to quite work because your
no,
B output values are going to be the same
it's
each
still
time.
gonna,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah, the B output ones are going to.
I'm gonna test it on mine here because I know I can't share my screen or anything, but I can. Just do a quick test on if this is going to work or not
Right, right. I'm thinking this may not be the approach to do for
to clear
this.
that data name.
Yeah, because
Because you
if
think that
B is
data name is
pop
going to be the selected value.
Either the selective value, right? You can pass out the whole list, right? So you have a
Yeah.
flow output data name for this. You can populate the whole list for this, but the only way that works is if dropdown A populates dropdown B, right? If dropdown B gets populated by whatever the input is for dropdown A, I guess updating input. So wait, hold on. Now I have a question on this. So this is dropdown B pulls from dropdown A, whatever the output is, right? Wherever the output of dropdown A is, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
using that in dropdown B. So changing dropdown A as far as the output doesn't automatically update dropdown B?
So, I think the issue is that we're supplying these drop downs with stored procedures.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like if I choose A, B, and C, and then I go through and I reselect A and I clear the value on B and C, then the drop down values um, from before are still there because the flow really hasn't been triggered again to provide a blank, because I've
Oh,
blanked I've nulled the selected value, so then I should get no values back, right? But it
right.
doesn't re-trigger the flow when you clear the value from the control.
Right. It's just if you clear it from the value of A's control, right? Then it
Yeah,
checks for null. Okay. So how can we do this? So if you, hmm, the only other way I can think to make this work is if you had, this is going to sound a little weird, right? So drop down A, someone selects something, right?
yeah,
A checkbox comes up. It appears after something selected, and drop down A becomes grayed out. It's disabled. You can still see what you've selected, but it's disabled. This little checkbox, this little button, you hit clear selection, and that's an active form flow that nulls this out.
that nulls A.
Yeah, that nulls A. So it's like you've input it, and then you have to push this button to say, oh, hold on, change that, right? And then it
Yeah,
nulls it
clear it.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it clears A, which fixes your problem. That would be a quick fix, but I don't know if that's the functionality you're looking for.
yeah. Um, so then the alternative would be to build
Active form flow
an
with your
active
stored
form flow.
procedure
Yeah,
because you can just use your set control values in there. You can just have it automatically check each B and C whenever drop down A is changed, right? It fetches the value from drop down A, and if it sees that drop down A is changed in any way, it reruns the check on drop down B and C.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I could, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see how it would probably fix it.
Yeah, it would because what would happen is if you selected drop down A, you go through your whole process. And then if I select drop down A to change it to something else, my active form flow runs on the trigger of drop down A selection changed, right? So if
Yeah,
I see that drop down A gets reselected, then I am going to populate drop down B, right? Again, I'm going to rerun that check to put in drop down B's data. And
yeah,
all
yeah,
I need to do is use a set control value with my stored procedure, right? It'll run the exact same check on whatever was selected from A, do the stored procedure, and if it's null, then drop down B becomes null as well, right? Because you run the stored procedure against a null selection on A, or however you handle that logic.
yeah. Okay.
So this
Okay.
definitely would fix the issue.
Yeah. Okay.
I can mess around with it a little bit more and see if there's a cleaner way to do it outside of the little kind of like push button. I'm kind of thinking of it as kind of like a CD that you put in a cassette. You've selected it's like, oh, I need a new CD, push eject, and now, sets that to
yeah.
null. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe active form flows might be the way to do it. It's just gonna, I think if I change the list input source, all the mapping and stuff's gonna get real mad. So,
Mm,
okay.
I see. I see.
Yeah, no
I can,
problem.
again, I'll look into this and see if there's a solution. But I guess what I'm also trying to consider here is one, is there a solution to doing it this way? And two, is that solution more efficient or, time saving than going back and remapping in active form flows?
Yeah, and I just feel like I don't know, I gotta build it fat. I gotta build it, I'm already a little behind on the project, so I gotta just rip it. Um,
I
so
will look into this for you though. I will let you know by the end of the day if I find another solution. If I don't, I'll email you that too. But just so you know that you have an answer for me on this, okay?
yeah, okay. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks.
Hmm, Alrighty. Do we have any further questions? I have not seen anyone else new join in a little bit. So let's see here. We'll take a look into that. That is doable. I just don't know how efficiently it's doable.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have anyone asking any questions. I'll give the countdown at 12:22. If I don't see anyone new join or any hands raised or questions asked by then, we'll just call it early. I am still in version 9.11, by the way, so we still got all those features. 9.12 is not slated to come out until a little bit later, so when that happens, I'll make sure that I update here and you all get to see that too. Yeah, what do we got new? I think I've already shown off everything that's new in 9.11 a few times already, right? Such as like the flow to parquet and the GraphQL integration, which is pretty nice that I can do that now. Under integrations, there's a new AI dashboard. I didn't get a chance to show that off last time. But all your AI prompts are now categorized into prompt groups. And then the way you create a prompt is going to be with the merge text like editor here. It's a lot cleaner and easier to work with. Okay. And we're at 12:22 and we have not had anyone join. In fact, we've had people leave. So I think I am going to count this down now. We'll be leaving in 3, in 2, and in 1. All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining this Lunch and Learn. A reminder that Eric is going to lead our deployment server Lunch and Learn on Thursday. So highly recommend attending that. Thank you all.